I've turned a complete 180 around half the stuff that I know about life from having read this book recently, and I'm really excited to put people onto it. So, this book pretty much blew my mind. The book is called Dark Horse. It's right here. Oh my gosh, that's so hard to read. Let's see if we can. There we go. So, the book is Dark Horse. And after I talk to you guys about this, I think you'll want to read this because it's profound. The strategy that they use to talk about fulfillment, why it's important, why we should be pursuing a life of individuality um, instead of a life of trying to jump through hoops to attain success through a system that tries to filter to find the best people. Um, that stuff just doesn't work, and it's thorough. The book is very thorough. It's a super important topic, right? I think like from reading this, what I realized is the most important goal in my entire life is to discover who I am and my individuality and who I'm supposed to be. And the book gives a very clear path for how to do this that I think is otherwise very unclear and difficult to attain. Um, I immediately started recognizing that this system works. We're going to talk about micro motives, which I think are really incredible. And one of mine that I have is like, if I find the truth about something or I figure something out, I have to share it. Like, I just have such a hard time keeping it inside. I want everyone else to know that this thing exists. I'll give you an example. I used to be a natural bodybuilder. I was really excited about lifting weights, and I tried to get super fit by doing stuff like 6 meals a day. You know, you got to go for like walks. There's like you got to drink a lot of water. And none of that stuff worked until I started counting macros. And once I figured out how calories worked, then I had to share it with everyone because that's the truth, right? So this is similar. Like, I've discovered this book that talks about how to find purpose and why I think it's a better path than just choosing a career or trying to get the world to tell you what to do. Guys, this is amazing. Okay, I have 8 people in here, and that is plenty. Like, I don't need to have 300 people. I just want to yap and get everyone's opinions and thoughts and their revelations from this. I'm so excited. Can a man even look in the same mirror twice? Everyone behave. Okay. Yeah, behave because we have mods in here now. We're legit. If someone comes in here and they're a negative Nelly, they're gone. Okay, so this book is called The Dark Horse. Are you guys ready? I'm so excited. Okay. The book is called The Dark Horse, and actually I was put onto this book by a creator on TikTok named Sarah Over Time. You can look her up. She's actually more of an Instagram girly, so she hasn't been posting on TikTok at least. But it's all good. She and I have had chats, and she was like, "Hey, I saw that you left your job this year. I actually did the same like a few months back." And she used to work for Google, and she was like, "You need to read this book. It's called The Dark Horse, and it talks about people who found success without taking the standard path." Hey, Brie, welcome. You're catching us at the perfect time. We're getting into it. Okay, so this book is about people who found success without taking the standard path, meaning they found success on a path that was kind of odd. They didn't really take a path that is like a straight line, but they still achieved like outstanding success. These people are outliers. They outlie like in a significant way. And this Harvard graduate said like, okay, that's really odd. Like, I wonder if I were to start studying these people and figuring out like what are their commonalities, what would I find? And he thought initially he was going to find people who were contrarians. Like, maybe they go against the grain. These are people who they don't fit the mold. They're like special, or they're extra educated, or they had like significant leverage in some way, and they grew hugely off of the merits of these like side effects or kind of maybe luck. And he found that none of this was true, and that the only thing that really tied them together was that the dark horses all had a very deep relationship with their individuality, and they understood what made them motivated about life. And they leveraged this to become excellent. So he used to think that you would become excellent or you become fulfilled because you're excellent at something, but it's actually the other way around. First, you become fulfilled, and then because you're fulfilled, you find excellence. And this is reversed. So the first thing here is there's this idea that he introduces. It's called the Standardization Covenant. And everyone knows what standardization is because I hope you've seen this, but there's a chart like this, right? And I've been making videos about this. But in here, right, we have a collection of people. And on this side, we have 15% or 5%, however you divide it. And in here, we have 70%. And over here we have 15, right? And the problem is that when we make estimations like, hey, people with morning routines do better. People who wake up early in the morning, they do better than other people. So you should start waking up early too, right? Because 70% of the time, this is standardly good advice. But it turns out that standard advice doesn't describe the individual, because like you might be here, but you might also be here. And so, yes, this is by Todd Rose. Yep. Super good. Okay, so here's the thing. Standardized advice doesn't describe the individual very well. People kind of get lost in these ideas of standardized advice. And if you tell someone just, hey, you just need to have grit, you need to focus on you need to have a morning routine. You need to find motivation in the little things. You need to, like, these are standard ideas. They're very broad though. And they don't really speak directly at the things that you do well. And the Standardization Covenant is very useful because they used it to, basically, it was first discovered as a tactic to be able to get more out of manufacturing, right? If we standardize things and we make everything the same, it turns out we can start to have some consistency and we get leverage out of that. So then we were like, oh, we're going to apply this to everything. And this literally, like, if you go back to our parents' generation, this made a lot of sense because we were getting all these efficiency gains that the Soviets had, and we were also doing the same thing. And we're like, okay, we should apply this to everything. We're going to have standardized careers, standardized education. We're going to standardize medicine. We're going to standardize everything. We just put it on everything. And we played this game of, like, it was an insight, right? It's like, hey, you can have a bunch of people and you can apply a standard curve to them and you can capture the majority. And you're not capturing them very well, but you're capturing them like in some metric. Anyways, what's really interesting about this is these people did not have a standard path. They chose a path that was very individual. And what he found was these people had motivations that were not standard. They were very specific. And so he starts talking about this idea of a micromotive. And I just call them MMs because I hate writing the whole word. It's like, too many letters to write micromotives when you're journaling. Like I'm getting so sick of it, I just write MM. So you write down MMs. And they're called micromotives because they're really tiny, right? It's like, maybe I should start writing them like this. It's like little m and then a big M, right? It's like a micromotive. And what micromotives are, and I think you guys can relate to this, is like, if I say I love computer science, I might actually love computer science because a different reason than you. Like maybe the things that I like about something are different. Maybe you and I share the same things, but if I actually talk to you about what you enjoy, it's a little different. Like it's not quite the same. And these micromotives are actually really important because instead of motivating yourself with standard advice, you can start to motivate yourself in a way that is very specific to your interests. So you can say, oh, why do I like that thing? Like right now, you guys can see I'm flipping. So I've been doing this, right? You guys see me flipping my pen. You see me taking the cap off my pen, putting it back on. I'm kind of like messing with it. I know exactly what this looks like in my head because my brain is kind of tuned into physical things that I have in my hand. This is like a thing that my brain is good at. And I find this very satisfying to understand the shape of things. I also enjoy like the understanding of software and systems. And I really like, this is just something that I enjoy. And so as a micromotive, they give you this game that's called the game of judgment. And I'm just giving you one way to find micromotives because there's many. But I discovered that you could play this game called the game of judgment and that you could start to figure out your micromotives. And as I did this, I started to uncover the things that actually get me really excited about life. And then I had some perspective here that started to get really interesting because I started to notice that the things that I was using to motivate myself in my day-to-day, the things that led me to success previously in life, were not, they're not specific to me. The reason why micromotives are so important is because they really are you. Like they describe you in a nutshell very well. And actually, I can give you a better micromotive. Let me give you a better one, okay? Because it's my lecture. We're just talking about whatever I want. Okay, a micromotive for me, I really enjoy breaking people out of the matrix. Like I like to remind them that they have choice and that you're not just caught in the system that you're in. You are able at any point to diverge from that path and do something else. Even though it's challenging, it is challenging, but the possibility exists. And I like to remind people of this because I feel like people a lot of times are kind of they're asleep, right? You've heard people say like, "Hey, you are maybe you're an AI in life, right? Or an NPC is what people call it." So it's like other people are NPCs. They're not even really living. And to a certain extent, that's true. And we also do this in our lives, right? I really like to wake people up and remind them that they are alive and that they have options. This is like really fun for me. It's part of what I'm doing right now as I'm talking to you guys. I'm trying to remind you that you have options. So micromotives are really important because these are specific to you and they're actually very small. So if you say I like computer science, let's do one that's even more. Why don't you guys name out some that I think are pretty typical? A lot of people that like maybe a lot of people enjoy these, but I think we can get more granular with them because the more granular you get, the more these matter. Can you guys give me some examples of things, maybe something that you like, and we can try to dive into something that's even more important, or maybe I'll find one that I like and I'll share why I like it. But I think you'll see that my reasons for liking things are a little bit different. Video games is a good one. So let's do video games, right? We have a video game. The reason why I like video games is because I really enjoy this experience where after I become competent at the game, I forget that I'm holding a controller. Ross said video games. Nice. Okay, that's amazing that we had the same thing. Oh, textured food is a very good micromotive. That's really interesting. You could get even more granular though. Like, what kind of texture do you enjoy? Okay, so I have a video game, but I like the feeling of like losing myself and forgetting that I'm holding a controller or forgetting that I'm controlling a keyboard. I am now inside the character and I feel like I'm manipulating them in a way that it's my own body. That's what I like. And there might be other things too. Like some people enjoy video games because they get to pretend that they're doing something productive, like they're like fishing or something. I actually hate this. I don't like doing that at all. I love video games, but I like feeling like I'm being athletic or something. I like exploring. And I like being challenged. Like I like hard things. I'm a tryhard. Like this is one of my micromotives is like I enjoy like really putting a ton of effort into something and like really, really trying hard, especially if it's something I'm curious about. But these are very nuanced things. Like these are not like saying I like video games is too broad, and perhaps even saying like I like feeling I transported into the game, that might be even too broad. Like you can get even more specific with these. And the insight here that I think is super profound that he brings up later is that if you have this perspective of understanding what your micromotives are, you would think that this locks you in. It actually does the opposite. Micromotives free you because if I have a career in computer science, right? Say I have a degree in computer science and AI, okay, we're going to talk about AI. AI is going to come replace me, right? I'm a developer. I'm literally I'm the front lines, guys. You guys think you're getting replaced? Like I've already been replaced, okay? I'm already out. They've already come in. I'm out the door. Okay, so I'm screwed because I'm committed to this whole degree of like all I do is like code quality and manage systems. I'm in trouble. But if I understand that the reasons why I like CS is actually because I enjoy understanding how systems work, I like that. I like the feeling of typing. I like typing. I like understanding like computation. So I like making things efficient. And actually, we should cross this out. I like efficiency. I think that's really interesting. I also the enjoy the setting of programming. Like I sit down at my desk and I make it very comfortable, and it's like it's a nice place to be. And I like putting on a hoodie and being indoors in the air conditioning while I'm like thinking deeply. So I have all these things, right? And now what I can do is I can say, so we have the hoodie. I'm indoors. We have AC. Okay, so we have all these things. And now what I can do is I can say, okay, what other things could I do with this that would actually be very similar to this? And it turns out I could leave computer science behind and I could go become a music artist or like do music. I could go into game development or I could be a gamer. I could what else could I do with this typing stuff? So typing's actually too broad too. Like maybe I like manipulating things with my hands. Like I like working with my hands and like the tactile nature of mechanical things Yep, I could be a producer. I could also start studying electricity because I find that really interesting. Um, there's a lot of flexibility because I have these like little things that I like and I can start to accumulate them. And it turns out that if you do this, you have a lot of optionality. And one of the things that I discovered was my micromotives, like my actual ones that I'm discovering, are not being fulfilled by my computer science degree anyway. So, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Okay, the truly micro motives turns out were not present in my day job. So like I'm actually a really good engineer, guys. I am. I was great in college. I understand algorithms. I put in the hours. I enjoy the craft. But there were things about my job that weren't fulfilling. And this is the insight. Okay, here, let's get back to, so we talked about micromotives. Let's talk about why my job wasn't fulfilling me, even though I like CS. So look, I'm gonna write CS here and I'm gonna use the red marker. I'm literally gonna put a heart here, right? Because oh gosh, so hard to draw a heart on stream. Okay, I love computer science. Okay, love it. It's all filled in. Okay, but I was not happy. I'm like not happy. So like if I follow the standardization covenant and I have a job, but I don't like what I'm doing, what happened? And this is really upsetting because under the standardization covenant, what they promise is if you do the path of school, you go to college, you get a degree, you will be somewhat successful. They promise that if you follow this curve, right? They're like, you find a way to fit in here, you are guaranteed to be safe. But then it turns out I did that and I'm sad. I'm sad, right? Are you guys following me here? Just because it's good doesn't mean it's fulfilling. Yes, but it could be fulfilling, right? The problem is that this is too broad. Computer science is actually too broad to be fulfilling. Unfortunately, this is not specific enough. I'm being too broad with what I think is great. You guys following this? This is hugely important to understand. It's like you have this job, it's supposed to have given you everything you wanted, but you're there and it's not doing it. And you're actually, here's what actually happens too. Artists will complain about this in college. They'll go, I didn't even do the computer science degree. I did the art degree. Okay. I picked the path of individuality. I was like, I'm going to focus on my art. And then they got a job in art and they were unhappy because they said, you need to make art like this, not the way that we wanted you to make art. You have to do it the way we said. And it turns out that the way that they do art in the professional world doesn't line up with their micromotives and they're sad. And this sucks, especially because you feel like you've been cheated. You feel like literally the standardization covenant when they state it at the beginning, and you should think of the standardization covenant as just a system that America runs under, right? We all understand what I'm referring to there, where it's like we have prescriptive paths to success that we're supposed to follow. And there's a bargain that is being played where they say, if you're willing to trade away your individuality, you will have some amount of success. We will give you a safe career, health insurance, you'll have 12 days vacation, you'll be good. So are we often not aware of our micromotives? Yeah, I don't even think we teach this, but we should, right? We should teach people how to find their micromotives. Because if you can find these, they're hugely motivating. Like right now, this talk, right? I don't really necessarily love trying to be on camera or something, but I feel excited right now because I'm sharing with you guys something that I think is really important. I'm sharing the truth. And so actually I'm willing to move mountains and part the sea in order to do this talk because I think it's useful. It's really important to me. So these micromotives unlock your ability to do incredible things. Like you're just willing to like push through all this nonsense. Micromotives don't make the world easy. What they do is they make you extremely motivated to do the thing that you're supposed to do best. And they allow you to discover your individuality. So you trade this path right here and you go and find your individuality. It looks like this. So standardization is a straight path where it's like school, college, doctor, right? Like literally you take this path and it's defined. Individuality ends up looking like this, okay? It's like you take this route, then you take this route, then you take this route, take this route, and you do like this. And now there's some things that come up when I start talking about this, because you might start to feel like, okay, I see why individuality sounds nice, but isn't it risky? Like, isn't this just someone saying isn't Nick just saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you chased your individuality? And you're going like, yeah, but this is risky. Like, this is a safe path. This is so much safer. Like, I'd be crazy to do this. My parents told me, like, I'll tell you, my parents told me, don't go get an art degree. That's crazy. You better go to college for something that's useful. Yeah, it's opportunistic, or you might have to get lucky. You might need to be lucky. And I used to believe this. I thought that being an individual, finding your individuality and finding your purpose was an act of luck and opportunity, not something that you could engineer, not something that you could create. But let's get back to the premise of the book, which is that he studied all these dark horses, and the dark horses, essentially, they knew what their micromotives were. They knew what strategies worked for them. They knew that they had choice. And what they started doing was they started taking these paths by pursuing the things that they felt fulfilled them. And they ignored where they were going. Like, they don't know. I should put like an arrow here, and we'll do a question mark, because it's like they ignore the destination. This one, you focus on, I'm going to become a doctor, so I'm going to go to school, and then I'm going to go to this college, and then I'm going to become a doctor. Under the individuality mindset, instead what you do is you go to this point right here, and you say, okay, now where's a good opportunity for me? Okay, I'm going to go here. And you take a really non-standard path to get there. But in doing so, you are motivated at each step to actually perform very well, because the stuff you're doing, he's getting blocked again. Because the stuff you're doing actually fulfills you. You get really excited about it as you're doing it. Do you guys see how this could be powerful? It's like, and there's going to be some pieces here I need to connect. And I want you guys to shoot holes at this, because he goes through a bunch of things here that make this very clear and actually turn this into an outcome that is achievable. This is not something that you are praying to happen. This is something you can engineer. You can create this for yourself. And in doing so, you will become a higher achiever than someone who follows a standard path, because you can take a path, you can create something that doesn't exist. And I'm actually going to give you an example of someone. We're going to talk about a story of someone my sister was telling me about yesterday, because this is a non-standard path. Okay, there's a creator. She's a content creator, and right now she is. Well, first I'll just let's tell the story first, and then I'll ask the question of, like, is this something you could do under the standard path? Okay. First, what she did was, there was a hawk, and maybe you guys know this creator. There was a hawk, and it was injured. Okay, and the hawk was hurt, so she started making content about helping it. So I'm going to help this hawk. And then she started streaming about this and talking about it. And then she started streaming more about other topics, but this is still like really important to her. And then this led into her doing a donation stream where she raised money to start an animal sanctuary. And then that sanctuary was so successful that she's multiplying the size of it, I think, by 2. Is this a path? Like, you're like, I'm gonna start a sanctuary, and the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna find a hurt animal, I'm gonna start helping it, then I'm gonna start a live stream career, then I'm gonna do a donation, and then I'm gonna start a sanctuary. Does this sound reasonable? Right? It doesn't. It sounds absurd. This is not how the system works. It's not. This is just not how it works. You can't aim at this by doing this path. This is ridiculous. I gotta zoom in. This is not how life works. Okay? But how life does work is you can do this first thing, which is, it turns out you really, really, really care about animals, and there's a hurt hawk near you, and you can start taking care of it. My argument is you can't always engineer a dark horse. No, my argument is you can't know what a dark horse path will be before they do it. They build it over time. Great question, though. I appreciate you asking that. So this is what's really tricky is when you're trying to understand this, a lot of times the old narratives will creep in. So the standardization covenant guarantees uncertainty, right? This guarantees certainty. Like it guarantees you're going to have success, okay? This path over here is insane. This is individuality and it's uncertain, right? You're taking on additional chaos to be able to have this path because you don't know what your outcome is going to look like up front. But it's okay because instead of pursuing certainty, what you do is you pursue your individuality. You pursue the things that make you tick, the things that get you excited. And actually, Alyssa and I had a talk a couple weeks ago, and I feel like I don't know if I articulated this yet because, or maybe I couldn't have because I don't know if I was at this part in the book. But she asked me about a couple of paths she could take. Sorry to call you out, Alyssa. I won't get too specific, but I will say the path that is the right path is the one that leans into your micro motives the most, the one that you're going to find fulfilling, that you would enjoy more, so that you can put in more effort and enjoy putting in that effort and then kill it. And this is the thing, these dark horses, they become savages. They literally become savages because you can imagine that if each step in your career was something that you found profoundly fulfilling and fun, you would not have any trouble at excelling at this, right? At being an outperformer. Okay, now we're going to move on a little bit further. So they give us a formula here. So it's like first you're going to find, and I wrote it it's actually on the stream, right? You're going to find the micro motives. You're going to realize that you have choice. So you have choice. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The third one I kind of went over. It's like know your strategy. And this one's really important because, like I was saying, your path is going to be a little weird. And so you have to recognize, like, you got to look in your life and say, like, what strategy actually works for me? If I tell you, like, hey, the way to find success in life is that you need to have a journal and you need to write that shit down. And then you start writing it down. I have a friend like this. He goes, when I journal, I stop journaling after like 2 days. And then that book sits on the shelf for 6 months. And then I feel grief or what do you want to call this? Like I feel sad, right? Because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm trying to come up with the word, not shun, but like you feel not grief, not doubt. You feel shame. Oh, you feel shame because you haven't been filling out the journal, right? So the journal doesn't work for him. So in his strategy, he's like, no, I don't do journals. Like, no, this is not for me. You got to know like what works for you. Like, this is so important. For me, you know what works for me, guys? I have something that's actually killer. This is something that I'm a savage about that you guys probably don't know. Or maybe you do. If you've watched all my content, you'll know. But I code every single morning for like 4 hours without breaking a sweat. And I don't look away or like break my focus. I would say like 1 out of 7 days a week, I don't do this. The rest of the days I'm in there, I grind. And I like it. I'm having fun. So like for me, a morning coding session is incredible. I can beat a lot of people at this because I just love it. I love coding in the morning. It's so fun. I'm focused like you wouldn't believe. But for some people, they hate this. I talked to a friend. He said he hates coding in the morning and that he only likes doing work late at night, especially coding. But he can code for like 3 hours from like 8 to midnight. He'll do that. He enjoys that. He's a night owl. I could be a night owl, but I'll only code for about 2 hours if I code at like 10 p.m. I start to get sluggish and my eyes start to hurt. Okay, so Steve's a late night guy. So notice like, and this is just one micromotive. It's like, hey, actually, I really enjoy working at night. For me, I'm like, I like that first morning session. I like wearing a hoodie. I want to be in a coffee shop sipping a latte, the perfect amount of caffeine, not too much. And I want to be like music in, I'm listening to piano. Someone else, they're like, no, not piano. If I listen to piano, I don't even want to be like, I hate that. And so you can start to, yeah, you construct basically your perfect life using these little things. It's like these little details that make your life amazing. And because you are really, really enjoying your life and through these micro motives, you turn yourself into a savage and you're engineering your life this way. The fourth thing here, like we said, you have to, and this is so important. This is the one that you're going to get tripped up on if you try to do this. Like if you read this book and you try to do this, the thing that's going to try to creep back in really fast, I even felt it before this live stream, is ignoring the destination completely. I don't know what's going to come of this, like of this whole TikTok thing. I'm just recording videos and streaming for you guys and sharing my thoughts. I don't have a plan I actually know I don't want to do a course. I hate courses. Don't want to do it. I'm not sure if I want to do coaching, and it doesn't care. And I don't really care. What I care about is like today I decided, or I recognized that one of the things I needed to do was I'd love to find the truth and share it. I read this book and I was like, this needs to be talked about. And because of that, I fueled all of this momentum. And now I'm talking about this and I'm ranting. I'm yapping. This is basically the whole thing. So figure out, you're finding your identity through your micromotives, the things that make you tick in life, that make you excited. I'll give you another one for me. I remember when I was in college, I told you guys I like breaking people out of the matrix, right? You can ask my best friends even today about this story, and they will remember it fondly because I convinced all of them to go into our college town late at night, like when all the people were out, and we were going to try to see how many people we could high five in a row. And we did. We high fived hundreds of people. In fact, we were high fiving like groups, and I'm an introvert, right? So this is super weird. We're high fiving groups, and the group that is down the street from us is like, oh, shoot, they're coming for us next. And then you can see them getting nervous, right? Because we were broken out of the matrix. We're having the time of our lives. We were forcing that to happen. And imagine if your whole life was things like this. It's like you're only doing things that you enjoy. My startup that I'm running right now, the one that I've been working on, I'm actually kind of lucky because the thing I'm working on is really fun and it does naturally lean into some of my micromotives. And I've recognized that's part of why it feels so fulfilling. But I'm also recognizing that some of it isn't. And I'm aware of it now. I got to be careful, right? Because if I just sit down and grind and do the old thing, I'm going to put myself back where I was. It's not going to work. Okay. So we talked about micromotives. We talked about why this actually gives you flexibility, which is really amazing. It gives you choice as well because you can choose. You recognize like you don't have to follow this standard path. You don't have to give up your individuality for certainty. You can engineer your life by choosing to spend time, like literally, guys, spend time looking at your micromotives. If something is a micromotive for you, you should literally, like, if you were talking to AI about this and it was like, do you like this thing? You should be responding like capital yes. You're not typing like, yeah. You're saying like, yes, that's exactly, like, that is very exciting for me. I love this. I'm very excited about it. And I'm going to give you guys one more practical example that I think is pretty interesting in terms of the importance of micromotives as it relates to strategy, as it relates to the things that you do with your life. Okay. You guys don't know this because you only see me on TikTok, but I have a YouTube channel. Okay. And I uploaded a YouTube video about 2 years ago. I think it was like 2 years ago. Okay. And it was about a modification that I had done to my car. Cause I have a car that's like kind of more like a race car. It's a Subaru WRX. It was stolen once. And I made a modification to it that I thought was really exciting. It was novel. I was being silly. I literally like soldered and cut wires in the car, which was really fun for me. And I recorded this video and I remember thinking like, wow, that was really, really fun. And I had a ton of motivation doing this. And even though I ran into a lot of struggles along the way, I somehow just kept executing. Like I did like 7 hours of editing, guys. Like editing videos is so much work. If you ever edited a long video, you know, this shit kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. But if you're having fun, you can push through that. And if your micromotives are aligned, you will get through that work. And I did. And I was like, okay, great. that video was so fun and so fulfilling. You know what? I'm going to be a YouTuber now. It's going to work. I'm going to make another video and it's going to feel just as fun as this one. It's going to be great. And then I sat down and I typed out the video. I created the prompt or like the script. And I came up with the idea, what I was going to do, all this stuff. And then I lost all my motivation. And it's because the second video was a little bit different. I didn't do it the same way. I actually made the video, I kind of stepped it up a level. I had a different concept for what I was going to do in the video, and it didn't lean into my micro motives anymore. The second video was a little more serious. It was more engineering related, less like playful hacking my car and doing something odd with it related. And so even though I thought YouTube was a very satisfying, fulfilling thing for me to do, it wasn't. So this sucks. This was horrible at the time. I was like, shoot, how come I had such a great feeling when I made this first video, but then the second video I just got owned. Like I wasn't able to finish it. I ruined my experience and I couldn't get it done. And I was a little frustrated. But now when I'm looking back on it, I realize I didn't engineer that video to lean into my strengths and the things that I enjoyed. And so this is everything. This is like, I think this is the key to literal, like, we're using the word fulfillment, but like if you want to be happy in life, you need two things, right? You need enough money and you need motivation and fulfillment to do the thing that you're supposed to be doing and to like basically have a roof over your head, right? You gotta make some money, and you gotta have motivation and you gotta be happy. The problem is you can go make a bunch of money but not find any fulfillment or happiness in it. And you can even be skilled in your craft and you're not having fun. There's countless examples of people who are very successful and they don't understand why they don't feel fulfillment. And it's because they don't even know who they are. They have no idea what their motives are, what things fulfill them or get them excited about life. And I promise you, these are way more individual than you think. I'm actually going to go deeper on this. The micromotives thing is so fascinating. I'll give you another example from the book, okay? There's been all these philosophers throughout time who have tried to come up with the reason that people feel motivated. And some people are like, oh, it's about sex. Or, oh, it's about creating value for society. And other people are like, no, it's about status. Everything's about status. And there's like 5 different philosophers, right? They've all come with these like really grandiose plans. But it turns out that motivation doesn't work like that because people have extremely individualized motives for why they do things and what they enjoy. And so that's why none of those are true. They're all broadly true under the curve of standardization, right? 70% of people like feeling status. Some people aren't motivated at all by that. They just don't care about it whatsoever. And so the only way to find your motivations is to lean into these little details about life that you find super enjoyable and really drive you to do what you do. Does anybody feel like there's gaps? Like, is there anything that you feel like, I know some of you literally sat here for all of this and that's incredible. It was fun for me to just like rant and talk about this. If there's any gaps or like things where you're like, I literally want you to say like, yeah, but this is unsafe or like, I could never, stuff like this. I want to know, take a guess. I could take a guess, but then someone would have to be crazy enough to come on stream. The guy who designed this, by the way, he describes this as being so fundamentally important and different. Like it is related to the earth and the sun. It's like, here's the earth, here's the sun, right? So, but he says in the book, people used to believe that the earth was the center and this rotated, right? But it wasn't just the position that mattered. It was also that they believed that all gravity went this way and that the sun didn't have any gravity. So not only did you have to swap these places and say, actually, this goes around this way, you also had to admit that this had gravity and this had gravity and maybe the moon also even had gravity. Crazily requested. All right, let's try it.
So excited.
Welcome.
I agree with you, and it literally resonates with me so hard because I was not the institution person. Like I did not, I didn't have these aspirations to get married, to go to college, to go off to college, to be to the dorm. So I literally did pay attention to the micro things from a really, really young age. So my path has not been, I am a dark horse, not a successful one at the moment, but it's not, that's not what you measure things by, right? In terms of like success, you measure it because of what you internally, what you're, that same joy that you get, that same motivation that you get from it is exactly what is the fulfillment part of it. So I love your message today. I absolutely love it. And I love that you're incorporating it into this because obviously, I mean, that's exactly the thing that you're saying. Because if people are going to get into this type of thing, right? Like me, like I'm switching over from a completely not, well, lending, right? Um, into
Okay.
like
Yeah.
coding and vibe coding and really actually I'm learning Python, right? And so I think it's super duper important for this to be like a fundamental thing that people do realize and really like get to adopting, you know, if it's the right thing for them, because we already have the proof of the opposite, right? And it's like everything you're
Yeah.
talking
Yep.
about is everything that, you know, everyone always told you, like growing up, like, yeah, no, you can't go be a guitarist or bassist. No, you have to go to college, right?
I appreciate
Nice.
you sharing. Yeah, this is awesome. That's great. I want to touch on one thing you said, which is like,
Hmm.
the standardized path actually does like there's some merit here. Like one of the
Hmm.
things that you got to be aware of is like standardization is very useful
Hmm.
in kind of getting us as far as we are today, but that
Hmm.
it's not like the whole picture, right? So like, can you relate to that? That like standardization was useful at one point, but now it's
Yes,
like it's no longer giving you that utility that you need
indeed.
now. Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed,
Okay.
because it's almost like you've got that, you know, it's like the whole, you know, awaken, not awaken thing. And now you've got the whole, you know, all of the this upper section, if you will, of the numbers in society who are there. So there's just no way that everyone else who's not there can be left there. Like it has to change, right? It has to progress to the next level. And so definitely I can totally see that. So yeah,
Oh
and I
my
agree,
gosh. Okay.
standardization for sure.
This is
Like
great.
I mean like
This is
DNA,
so
right?
great. Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
This is so great. Thank you so much for sharing. You reminded me of something else. I'm going to talk about that too. So, guys, she actually reminded me of something that's super important. Okay. And this relates to a book that I've talked about on stream before. It's called Zero to One. It's by Peter Thiel, everyone's favorite crazy person, right? And something that's actually really important about individuality. And I made a video about this. You can check my channel. But individuality, because it leads to these really high performers, right, that are on these non-standard we should draw this as a curvy path, right? They go like this. Okay, the problem with the standard path and the standardization covenant is that it is not technology, it's actually distribution. And so distribution, what it does is like when technology happens, we have like kind of like a spike that happens, and then what we do is we try to like spread this out everywhere and we want to share it with everyone. And this is really useful because if we have something like the internet, you don't want the internet to just be like something that one person has. You want it to be something that everyone has. And then we want to share information and we want to spread it across the world and let everyone get the same leverage, right? This is like super important. But the problem is spreading like distribution like this doesn't lead to any new technology being built. You need someone to come along and to create the next block, and then for this to go and spread and create the next thing. Like, and it's actually one of it's the main thesis of his book. Like everybody talks about some of the other concepts in the book more frequently, but his main concept that he starts the entire book with is that he believes that technology is more important than globalization, which is distribution. So, and I shouldn't use distribution actually because it sounds like marketing. It's not. Globalization is we create the internet and then everyone has internet, right? And it shares and spreads throughout the whole world. And so you need individuals to come in and create these. These are dark horses because individuals and standardization are actually opposites of each other. You can't create the next block like this inside of the standardization covenant. And the book makes this very, very clear that this is not how this works. And so I made a video about this that basically said like, I used to think that America didn't have enough competition, right? We didn't have enough competition. We had anti-competitive practices. But I don't think that's true. What we lack is individuals who are doing the thing that they are best at. He also has another concept that he talks about that I think relates here. That is that he said competition is for losers, basically, right? Because competition, usually what happens is two companies compete and they both lose while a third competitor comes over and takes their place. because competition is brutal. But you don't have to compete if you're an individual, because you always lean into the things that you're best at, and you invent yourself a life that no one else can do as well as you do. And you've heard this in like the way of people saying like, nobody can compete with you if you're just being yourself. But I'm just telling you that the book gives you a path for being able to engineer this process so that it is not just a shot in the dark. This is something that you can create. And that's what I think is so profound about it. That's why I'm excited.
So when you talk about the standardization part of it, I can't quite tell. This is a question more than a statement. I can't quite tell if you're saying, this is bad for everybody and everybody should be changing toward these more kind of individual approaches, or are you saying, hey, yeah, that works for most because it's a bell curve. It works for most. Most people are going to thrive and survive in there, and only a portion of people should move toward those fringes. Does my question make sense?
Yeah, this is incredible, actually. So one of the things that the Standardization Covenant gives you is it says, okay, if you take the standard path, I should draw this better. We'll draw it big. But it says, okay, if you follow the path, right, of standardization, no matter where you are, like we could actually, so I'm going to plot this in terms of being poor, okay? You're poor, you're middle class, or you're rich. It says, as long as you go to school and then try hard and you score well, you study, right? You work your butt off. If you can land your way inside of this area somewhere, then you'll be okay. And it promises you this certainty as a trade-off of your individuality. It says if you just forget who you are.
You're not saying that's bad, right? You're not saying that's wrong, right?
I'm not. In some ways, the Standardization Covenant is very useful because it gives people a path to certainty, right? If you want to guarantee that you're not going to be homeless, this is a path you can take. It's an option.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting about this, though, is that if you're already rich and you're someone who, let's say this guy's worth $10 million, right? And he has a kid. What's funny is they'll send them on this path too of the Standardization Covenant. They'll send him to school. They'll put him in Ivy League. Why wouldn't they teach them how to be individuals and how to be themselves?
Yeah.
That part's really weird to me. But yeah, I love this this question because it's like, the goal of the book isn't to throw away standardization. Standardization is very useful.
I think that's part of the message a bit is like, hey, yeah, standardization still serves a good purpose for many people who need that security, who live in that kind of that area. But I feel like your message a lot around it almost lines up with the Outliers book. That it's by a 20-year-old book. It's by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell, but he wrote. I think it's called Outliers, but it has the same kind of concept that, it's the people on the edges of the bell curve that are the most innovative, that are driving new things or driving new thoughts. And a little bit of that mixed with, somebody else mentioned it in your comments with Atomic Habits, but the micro motivations in the Dark Horse stuff feels a little different than habit chaining that was in the Atomic Habits.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up again because I wanted to touch on the Atomic Habits book because I love that book. I really do. And then you mentioned, so standardization in terms of, so this is the thing to recognize too, is like, I'm also not advocating that you don't get jobs or that you be an entrepreneur. That's not part of this equation. You can actually do anything. You could do any job in life under these principles by leaning into your micromotives and finding a career or a path that leans into them very well. And you might actually have multiple different jobs that you take that are not related to each other because you're trying to craft the type of experience or the type of life that you want, right? You are engineering your path. And so I'm not even necessarily saying jobs are bad, right? I have obviously I left my job. So part of what I started with was like, hey, I'm currently unemployed and this is like a really fun experience for me. But I'm actually not recommending to be like unemployed. I'm just saying that being focused on your micromotives leads to fulfillment, which turns you into a savage and turns you into someone who can be a top performer. Yeah. So hopefully I answered what you're getting at there.
I think so. And I'm gonna ask you one more question and I'll drop off here.
Yeah.
But
sure.
I think your sentiment about like and the previous person that was on, their sentiment about trying to change the way things have always been a little bit, kind of not a little counterculture vibe. There's a little counterculture vibe in there. And it's certainly, I think, when I like watch all these TikToks with, and I'm not trying to be too ageist, but with people who are just dismayed a little bit with the status quo, are dismayed with, why do I have to go to work, 8 hours a day, and is it really benefiting me? Am I really happy? All that stuff is really good stuff. But I do wonder what your thoughts are around like age, and how does that affect you? Me and you are probably in different phases of life. I'm nearly 50 years old. I've got kids. I've got grandkids. I'm super energetic, but what motivates me is definitely different than what motivated me when I was, in my 20s and 30s kind of thing. And whether those would be micro or macro, I definitely feel like my motivations changed over the phases of my life, for different purposes. But, I'd just like to get your thoughts on how you feel about what both the micro motivations and the standardization versus outliers kind of thing for people of different ages. And then I'll drop off. Hey, thank you, man. It was really nice to be on here, and I'll keep watching your
thanks,
stuff.
Steve.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for hopping on and being brave. Yep. So he talked about Steve just brought up a couple of things, which is like the ages thing is really interesting, and kind of the evolution of your micromotives. The first thing I'll say is like one thing that I discovered from this, and this is a related concept, but basically our childhood leaves clues about things that we are motivated by in our lives. So you can look back at your childhood and say, I really enjoyed this thing as a kid, I actually recognize. And it turns out that thing is also still really enjoyable to you today. And I actually made a video recently where I said I reminded myself that I wanted to have a life where I remembered to play, because playing to me is really important. And so I can look back and say, actually, that's really motivating to me now. Like if I could have a job where I remember to play and to do fun things, that is super motivating and exciting to me to be able to engineer that future. The second thing that he asked is like, hey, what about like things that change over time, whether it's micro or macro motives, which I'm really focused on. I think every macro motive can be broken down into a smaller micro motive until it gets to a certain point where it's like, no, this is just true. But our experiences over time, I think, teach us about new things that we find very fulfilling, and we should pay attention to these. And literally what I'm trying to do with my life, and I'm using AI for this, right? I said I wasn't going to talk about AI, but I will a little bit here, is I created a repository that helps me to dig up my micromotives about myself by just typing or complaining at the AI. And the AI helps me to identify things that I find that are profoundly important to my motivations, and then helps me isolate them. And then I create little files with them. And I have a collection now of about 8 things that I think are really deeply inspiring and important to me to remember and to have in my life on a regular basis. And these things are already changing the way that I feel about life. Like I'm so excited to engineer a world where this is where I spend my focus. So I'm very obviously excited about this. Okay, I'm going to catch up on some comments here for a second. Field Notes says, I was motivated by the Transformers when it came out when I was 11 or so. Yeah, but there's probably, so what was the thing that was motivating about the Transformers? And you can choose to look at age is just a number, we become mind over matter issue. Yeah, I think the age thing, okay, so that's the other thing, Steve, that I should say is like age-wise, this is a really incredible time for you to figure out what these are too, like to understand more of these, because even though you're older, there are many opportunities that will have overlap with the things that you find enjoyable in life. And if you can do these, then you will succeed. You'll succeed because you enjoy it, because there's nothing stopping you from taking action on it. I have another talk that I could do that talks about, and I've made videos about this, so you could go find those instead of me yapping again. But it talks about how motivation is based on our beliefs, not on the facts. And this relates to that heavily. It's kind of like your motivations come from the things that you believe, or like the perspective that you have. And so this is just a very natural way to lean into that super hard. I've read that those who know us as children can have important insights about our future career. Yeah, that's definitely true. I have a buddy who I was talking to yesterday about this stuff, and he can immediately point out things that like, he's like, you like this and you don't like that. And he's pointing out like an exact detail that is so true that it kind of shook me for a moment. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much accurate. Okay. Yeah, mind over matter, or age is not an issue if I think about it. Gosh. Oh, okay. I guess Bree is not here. Let's go. Okay. Well, guys, I pretty much yapped my whole life away. It was amazing. I'm so glad I did this. I really wanted to do this, so I appreciate those who were able to stick around and get insights from it. Oh, Bree is here. It was showing. Oh, it wants me to. It was trying to get me to invite you as a guest. Okay, I'm not going to do that unless people are requesting. I'm not going to just like yoink them into the discussion. But this was super cool. The people that are in chat too, some of you were on the live stream with Alyssa. It was so cool for you guys to join. I appreciate you joining and hearing me out just just talk about my life. Guys, this book is super, super good. It's called The Dark Horse. If you want to read more about this, and it probably explains this better than I did. I just wanted to give my take, right? Like the way that I see it, because I feel like until this, I always saw this as a risky path, and I was afraid to take steps in that direction. And I really thought that my startup was going to help me to feel fulfillment. And this was the exact book I needed, because I think it's very possible that my startup was not going to give me the fulfillment that I was desiring without being aware of this stuff. And so I'll leave you with this. If you take a screenshot of the stream and you take this part that says right here, the 1, 2, 3, 4, find your micro motives, you have choice, know your strategy, ignore the destination. These are the notes that you need to take away. And then you guys need to, then you can read the book and know what you're looking out for. But yeah, I hope everybody has a great day. This is my fulfillment yap. And now I don't have to do this again. I'm really I'm happy that I don't have to yap on this concept again. Unless I find another reason to make a video related to this. In which case you guys will suffer again. You're just gonna have to read. You're gonna have to read this book by yourself. But I highly recommend it. This is the best book I read in all of 2026. And it's July, so it's pretty good. That's the one sentence version of what I talked about. Buying it now, dude. It's so good, guys. Also, for you guys who participated, and also those who I already know from the Discord, like guys, send me DMs if you read this book and you find an insight that I didn't touch on that you feel like Nick needs to know about this too. Like I want to. Part of sharing this is like so that we can collaborate on this, because I think finding your individuality and giving up the desire for comfort and safety and certainty, finding out who the heck you are, is like the most important task of your life. To figure out what your micro motives are so that you can have a fulfilling life. Like, can you think of anything more high priority than that? I'm realizing that I can't. It's like I actually didn't even I cut my coding session like an hour short this morning because I was like, I need to do some journaling and think about this even more. This is such a high priority task to figure out what you're supposed to be doing and find your individuality. The author, oh yes, so it's Dark Horse by Todd Rose and Ogas. He's a Harvard professor who started studying people who were outperformers. This book, it doesn't invalidate it. Obviously, standardization is great. It's just, I think the thing I was realizing while I was thinking about it this morning is that standardization is not something to be applied to individuals. It's something to be applied to systems. Like it's very useful in systems. Hey, we want to make this product the same way every time and have a standard, a goal for how we're trying to create it. But it's not something to do with people because we're shoving them into boxes. When they would be much better if they were individuals that were leaning into their strengths, the things that they were designed and uniquely tailored for and motivated to do best in life. Okay, guys, we're over time. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much to all of you. This was so fun just to yap my mind off. If you don't know me and you're new here or you're not following yet, I mostly do I do about half AI content. I know a lot about artificial intelligence. I've read a lot about it. I was a computer scientist for 8 years professionally. but now I'm trying to find myself. So a lot of my content is about life. And yeah, I'm really passionate about getting people excited about life. And we're probably going to have more content that's like that. Just me doing like silly things, trying to have fun with my life and working on my startup while leaning into my motivations as much as I can. That's the goal. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in, guys.